Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Elliot, Lawry.
I'm Emma Gillespie.
Over the past decade, Aussie reading rates have been in decline, with more and more young people saying they don't read for pleasure ever. That is, until very recently, with a booming interest in novels about sex and love showing signs that the tide may just be turning. In today's deep dive, I'm speaking to an expert to help us unpack what's really going on. Why romance novels are capturing hearts, inspiring new readers, and creating a lifeline for a generation struggling to pick up a book.
Elliot, you have such a fun interview for us today about sex and romance books. I think it's something people will really connect with, this idea of being disconnected from reading and wanting kind of a way back in. Before we jump into that chat though, do you want to just walk us through why you were curious about looking into this kind of a topic in the first place?
Yeah, so my deep dive into this topic didn't actually start with a book. It started with a TV show, Heated Rivalry.
Oh, I've heard of it.
Oh, I'm sure you have. Before we go any further, Emma, do you want to give us the rundown of what Heated Rivalry is about as our culture correspondent?
Yes, of course. Heated Rivalry, in case you've been living under a rock, is a HBO Max series about a beautiful budding romance between two rivals. It's the gay hockey show, if you've heard of it referred to as that. But it follows this story of Shane Hollander, Ilya Rozanov, the two main characters. They're enemies on the ice and lovers off it.
And the show is actually based on a book, which is why we're talking about books today. It's a series called Game Changers by the author Rachel Reed. And that's really crucially important context for today's podcast.
Yeah.
Basically, what happened was I was watching the finale of the show with my housemate, and at the end of it, he turned to me and he said, I think I'm going to read a book. And now this is a man who hasn't picked up a book probably in his adult life, I think.
Yep.
And it was really motivating to see him get eager to delve into a story further.
So he was specifically motivated to read the Heated Rivalry books, the Game Changers series, because of how much he connected with the show.
Exactly. And when I brought this anecdote to the office, everyone was really interested because it got us talking about how many of our friends have sort of, redeveloped this passion for reading through books that are maybe a little bit spicy, a little bit sexy, and a little bit romantic. And with Heated Rivalry in particular, that's been reflected in the broader culture. Across Australia, it's actually impossible to buy the books at the moment because they're sold out everywhere. The publisher did not anticipate the popularity that was going to come from the show. Yeah, and
these books have been around for a little while, but I have to say I haven't seen this kind of viral obsession with anything in the book world since maybe like Twilight. I can't remember a time when we were so collectively united as a culture to be this excited about books, which is kind of sad, honestly, because Twilight was a pretty long time ago. But TikTok, specifically BookTok, has kind of changed things, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know about you, but a lot of my friends have been picking up books like the A Court of Thorn and Roses series. Those have a very similar sort of topic to the Heated Rivalry books in that they're centered around these steamy romances. Now, that has led me to going out, talking to some booksellers, and eventually speaking to Anna from Australia Reads, who I'm talking to today.
What do we need to know about Anna?
So Anna works for Australia Reads. They're a big non-profit initiative that's funded by the government as well as some other non-profits. And they're kind of aimed at increasing reading rates across the country. But as part of their purview, they also kind of look into and track how Aussies are reading, which is why I reach out to them. Now, Anna actually heads up that operation. She's also an avid book reader and advocate for reading in Australia. And she joins us now. Anna, thanks so much for joining the Daily Aus.
It's great to be here, Elliot. Thank you.
So today we're going to be talking about all things romance fiction and Heated Rivalry in particular. But before you get into it, I do want to take a step back. What do we know about Aussie reading habits in this day and age?
Broadly speaking, some people are reading lots. So we've got millions of Australians reading semi-regularly, which is a really great thing. But we also have an increasing number of Australians who are not reading at all, an increasing number who are reading less often than they were. They're becoming pretty infrequent. So that's quite worrying for us. So our really committed readers who are reading all the time are probably actually reading more. The sales suggest that they're certainly buying more books. They're really comfortable, but there's a shrinking number of those people. So we're really looking at how we can encourage more people to come back to books and stay in that bookish environment that millions of people enjoy. And the nice hopeful bit of the research shows us that most Australians want to read more. We just we struggle in our daily lives to necessarily find the time to have the confidence and to find something that we love. And that's why this upsurge in the kind of mainstream popularity of all kinds of different genre fiction, including romance, is so heartening and lovely, because it means people are finding what they love, and you enjoy something, you do more of it. So that's what we're very happy about this trend.
And just to your point about that large cohort that's sort of disengaging from reading, what do we know about why that might be happening?
Yeah, we've done quite a detailed study, and we've done that with behavioral scientists from Monash. So something we've heard for a long time is, I just don't have time. Now, that's not actually the case, because we have quite a lot of leisure time in modern society. It just looks different. It's super fragmented. It's highly distractible. It's a couple of minutes here and there, or it's what we think is a couple of minutes. So it's our perception that I've only got 2 minutes. I'll just look at something on my phone. Actually, 12, 20 minutes go past. So you did actually have a longer block of time than you thought. So what we've done is look behind that into the barriers, and we've found that that there are definitely challenges about how people make a regular habit that works for them. So for some people, reading before bed is perfect, and there's beautiful research that shows us that you sleep better if you're a regular reader, and actually extends your life, because you have these lovely health benefits and sleep benefits. So it's great if you're a night owl who is comfortable reading before bed. For other people, me, if the book falls on my face and hits me in the face. So it's not a great time for me. It's a great time for families to have that bedtime routine, to read together, older than you would think. So young people up to the age of 17, most of them, almost 90% of them, wish their parents still read with them, because it's a really special moment, which is both a really sweet and slightly heartbreaking statistic, because they want more of it, more of that connection. And parents generally stop when children can read for themselves. So about age 7, that family reading stops being a general practice. So it's something we'd like to see more of, that kind of routine. Whereas if reading before bed isn't for you, can you make a point in your schedule that it becomes routine? It becomes a habit that you make space for yourself. Whether that's over the morning coffee, you're reading a book, maybe you go out for a walk and you listen to an audiobook, maybe you're commuting and you've got an audiobook on. Road trips with family, they're great for that. We've got a really broad definition of reading, and listening to a book absolutely counts.
So in the middle there, you mentioned young people. That's a large part of our cohort of listeners here at the Daily Aus. What do we know about how young people are engaging with reading, and are we seeing an increase or a decrease?
Decrease, unfortunately. Back in 2017, about 22% of young people didn't read at all. That's up to 29% now of Australian young adults, teenagers in particular, are not reading at all, and that includes listening to a book. And they haven't read or listened to a book through choice for the last 12 months. About 1 in 3 primary school children can't read proficiently. That's a Grattan Institute report. That's going to cost the economy $40 billion over the life cycle of those young people who can't read properly. But that actually just occurs to a social challenge, because then when you grow up and you're a teenager, when you've left school, you've left uni, books aren't a regular part of your daily life. That pattern perpetuates. So we want to kind of see what we can do to shift those perceptions. So we've seen a decrease in young people reading, but we have seen an increase in excitement about different genres, which is a great thing. So romance, science fiction, crime is ever popular, and then formats, audiobooks and graphic novels, both incredibly popular with younger people. So I think there's hope. We've just got to put the right books in front of people and think about how we change the conversation about how we talk about books to make it social and fun and really normal. And I actually think social media has done some wonderful things to help people talk about books differently in younger age groups.
Yeah, I was actually just reading some stats that said that fiction sales are up something like 50% in Australia. And I got an email from Amazon this morning that said it was their top genre over on Kindle last year. Why do you think people are so interested in that category and that genre right now?
Hello, Billy here from TDA. We have just looked at our YouTube analytics, and 95% of you who are watching our videos aren't subscribing. If you want to help independent media like us grow, the best way you can do that is by pressing subscribe. Thank you so much, and back to the video.
Well, it's been a growth genre for a couple of years, since kind of the COVID days. I think there's a combination of things going on. One, niche, what has previously been considered a niche entertainment or enjoyment, there are many of those niche communities that have realized they aren't niche, through connection and the internet, that all around the world there are people just like them who really enjoy reading romance, and that has allowed, digital culture has allowed that to be a lot more visible, and that's a great thing. Once something becomes more visible, you lead it towards becoming what the behavioral scientists call a social norm. So if you see other people talking about it, you are much more likely to come clean yourself. You're like, I like it too, or I'm going to try it, because you want to be part of what everyone else is interested in talking about. And so it's reducing the shame. So that mainstream visibility has shown that something is not niche. These stories speak to who we are as humans, and they're fun, and you can talk to your friends about them. And those are the kind of components that people are looking for, that social and human connection. They're looking for fun and enjoyment. And I think off the back of the COVID years, we were really looking for things that could help our escapism as well. And I think we're still seeing that wave ride through as the world goes through challenging times.
And to your point about digital visibility, I know that often on Book Talk, when I'm sort of scrolling on that platform, I almost always see romance books cropping up and being recommended by creators there. Is that the type of stuff that you're talking about?
That's definitely part of it, yeah. But that translates across to bigger platforms. So things like Goodreads, where you start to see more appearance there. You start to then, as a result, see things creep up on the Amazon Kindle charts. You see it creep into Audible. Spotify, of course, have now made things much easier for people to access audiobook-wise by having audiobooks in their subscriptions. So I think what the industry would call the discovery channels, the ways that people are finding and seeing these are increasing. One of the challenges for Australia is that a lot of the time those recommendations are American, because that's who's in control of the algorithm. So it's a little bit of, well, what do we do to surface those kinds of books that are just as incredible and interesting and maybe reflect young people's lives in different countries and from different class backgrounds. But I think that, yes, those platforms like BookTok, Bookstagram, BookTube are definitely a part of that picture, but then they filter through to these bigger platforms, which then changes into the retail. So like bookshop layouts have changed because of BookTok. So some of them have gone for the display is right there. You come in the door, you're not used to going to bookshops. Bookshops is something your mum does, not you. But you come in and there's your BookTok books. You don't have to ferret through the store. So it's been quite fun in the way that digital culture that is often a youth voice is talking about these books. They're talking about this genre. They're talking about it openly with fun and not shame. And that is changing the physical environment. There are also now more romance bookstores. So I live in Narm in Melbourne. I don't know if you know that there's a new bookshop in Brunswick West called The Forbidden Chapter that is all about spicy romance, and they have an event space.
I'm obsessed with that.
And so you can do book launches. You can go and talk about these books. There's book clubs. So I think I love the fact that, like a lot of these what were niche cultures like nerd culture and science fiction and stuff, they are so mainstream and really celebrated.
Yeah, I'll definitely go and check it out when I'm next in Melbourne. I did now want to turn to Heated Rivalry. Have you seen the show or read the books?
I haven't seen the show. I have begun the books.
So it was recently reported that it's borderline impossible to get the books here in Australia. And I have actually gone and spoken to some booksellers here in Sydney, and they said that they've had a really big range of young people coming in and trying to buy the book, obviously unsuccessfully. Why do you think it's resonating with that audience in particular?
It's human connection. What I can tell is really going on in these books is two young people working out their way in the world, in a world that isn't necessarily accepting of them. And I think that is something that young people are often looking for in fiction is to not feel alone and to feel and see different ways of being in the world. And that those ways are celebrated and valid and important. And so that connection, amidst all the steaminess that is in Heated Rivalry, what you've got is a connection between two humans who are trying to figure out how to be together. and what it means to be together. Like, what does a consensual, grown-up, sexy relationship, what is that? What does that look like? And they want to see their own lives reflected, but they also want to enjoy the escapism. Like, a romance is a lot to do with escapism. And so I think there's a combination of things going on there in these particular books.
A little anecdote for you is that my housemate, who typically doesn't read at all, has actually been inspired to get back into reading after watching the show. This is a kind of common trend that we've seen over the last couple of years, with romance books being popular with people that might not typically read as well. What do you think of that type of content being the way back in?
Fantastic. The reason people go to watch the thing and then say, I want to read the book, is because they know the book will be a deeper experience. Like, millions of us still love reading them. Yeah, sure, we're like, I want to find more time. We've got some barriers to getting into it, but innately we know that it will give us the deep experience because we have to concentrate, which calms us down. And you get a depth of perspective from different narrators that really puts you inside the world in a way that other art representations can't quite do, because there's still somebody else's image or picture of that world. Whereas when you're reading it for yourself, you can project yourself onto it. You're like, I can see myself in this story now. I don't know about you, but like, sometimes you see an adaptation of a book and you're like, that's not how they look. They don't sound like that. And everybody gets very indignant because the way that I have dreamt it, that's the right way. That's how that story is. So I think books allow us to be very personal and have a deeper, stronger connection to those stories. So I love that your housemate is going to go off and read a book.
We'll see if we can get him a copy first. Now, you mentioned there are a couple really amazing health benefits that come from reading more generally. I'm curious to know what role romance and sexual content has in maybe educating younger readers. And, for parents, is there an appropriate age for kids to start engaging with that type of content?
I think it's about introducing young people to respectful, consensual relationships early on, in an age-appropriate way, and then ensuring that content evolves with them as that young person grows up. And the books are there for the different ages. So everything from tiny people right the way up to young adults, and then we're getting into the spicier content. There's such a range as well of different styles of books. Like, for some people, they might want to read, it might feel safer for young people to read about sex and relationships in, say, a fantasy world, because fantasy is also a very popular genre that continues to grow, because you're at one remove, so it can feel a little bit safer. Whereas for other young people, they don't like the dragon stuff. They want to know what that looks like in their high school. They want to know what that looks like in their sports club. So I think people can, to some extent, self-select, and there are systems out there that can help you curate and find the right type that you're ready for.
Now, I did want to end by throwing it over to you. If you had to recommend one book for our audience to pick up, what would it be?
Oh, that's me. Well, if they're reading Heated Rivalry and they're looking for something along that type, then Darcy Green is an Australian author, romance author. So AFL setting would be After the Siren. So Darcy Green's After the Siren, or the tennis is on at the moment. So Abra Pressler's Love and Other Scores. So they're not quite as steamy as Heated Rivalry, but there's definitely a lot of great romance going on there. So for Heated Rivalry fans, they're two good Aussie options.
Anna, that was such an interesting conversation. It's making me want to go and read right now. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us here at the Daily Aus.
It's been a pleasure, and happy reading.
Elliot, what a fascinating interview. That was such a joy to listen to. Thank you for bringing us that chat today.
Thanks, Em.
If you are curious, Heated Rivalry is on HBO Max. Game Changers is a book you can't get in shops, but you can probably still get it if you've got a Kindle. That's it for today's deep dive. We will be back a little later on with your evening news headlines, but until then, have a great day.